Hello and welcome to this new podcast from the North Essex Economic Board, often known as NEEB. If you hear NEEB, that's what we're talking about, where we're going to help businesses understand the implications from the 2022 autumn statement made by the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt yesterday in their House of Commons. The North Essex Economic Board, for those of you who don't know, is a partnership of councils across Mid and North Essex, really. So from Tendring, Colchester, Braintree, Uttlesford, Malden, and Chelmsford districts, boroughs, and cities, as we all are a mixture at the moment, and along with the support of Essex County Council too. And we're working to support economic growth throughout the kind of sub-region of North Essex, and in particular doing a lot of work to help businesses survive and thrive across the area. So as I said, today we're going to have a little bit of a look at the autumn statement, a little bit of analysis on what happened and the announcements made yesterday, but also hopefully we can find out a little bit more about the support that's available on the back of that from some of the fully funded programmes that are available through the North Essex Economic Board. So I'm delighted to have two experts joining me today. We have Andy Turner, who is from the Backing Essex Business initiative run by the Let's Do Business group. Andy, first of all, do you want to just say a quick hello and a little bit about the support that you provide?
Yeah, no problem at all. Good morning, Will. Happy to do that. We provide support to all businesses across Essex, either forming, starting up, moving, or long established. We can offer up to 12-hour support through a combination of helping people with business plans, with projections. We also offer loans, which I'm sure will come on as part of the podcast recording later on. Importantly, with a range of other topics around marketing, HR support, and importantly, safeguarding businesses and helping people to increase employment as well.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Andy. And we also have Craig from Colbea. Again, hello, Craig. Thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about the support programs that Colbea provide?
Thanks, Will. So Colbea has been around for 40 years in Essex. We're based up in Colchester, but we deliver support services across the whole of Essex. There for any stage, any size, any sector of business. And it covers a wide range of things, right from the people that are just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey, thinking they might have an idea in their head that they want to explore and understand if that's going to work. We've got something for people in that stage of their business, but also more established organisations that may have been around for many, many years. And have opportunities or challenges potentially arising, through some of the challenges that we're going to speak about today, and we can help them overcome those in coordination with the great work that's going on with the local authorities and partners like Backing Essex Business as well.
Lovely, thank you. And I should say as well that one of these are two of the business support providers that the North Essex Economic Board fund and are working closely with. And we're also working very closely with the Best Growth Hub, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, but are an excellent resource. They help people navigate the myriad of business support that's out there and refer into Backing Essex Business and Colbea too. And they've supported some of the background work to make this podcast happen too. So let's dive into it, I suppose. There's quite a lot to unpack from the autumn statement today, and it's worth noting, of course, lots of business owners will probably be aware, but some of you may not be, I suppose, that there's almost two strands to the autumn statement. There's the bit that the Chancellor stands up and talks about in the House of Commons with all the kind of cheering and jeering that goes on around that too. But there's also sort of a wealth of background papers that are published by HM Treasury at the same time that unpack some of that detail a little bit more. So hopefully we're going to have a bit of a look at a few different aspects of that today. We're going to talk about business rate changes, the national living wage rise and the impacts that they might have on your business, some of the wider kind of forecasting that was included within the statement around sort of inflation and employment rates, and there are some other bits and pieces in there as well, kind of research and development and electric cars and all kinds of things we're going to dive into this podcast. So without further ado, I suppose let's jump into it. And I think maybe the biggest one, Andy, is around business rate changes. A few different things outlined in the autumn statement, but perhaps the biggest one being around the rates re-evaluation happening from the 1st of April next year, but also some transitional support from government there. So could you perhaps tell us a little bit more about that and what businesses should be looking out for?
Well, clearly from what I've read, the reports I've seen following yesterday's autumn statement, there will be a rates revaluation based as at the 1st of April 2021, I believe. Hope I got the date right, which will see business impact from 2023 onwards. Depending on how the rates come out, clearly there will be a negative impact on businesses. So that's something I think they should price in for, as well as all the other costs on the business as well. All I would say, if anybody has any specific concerns, then please do contact any one of us on this call, and we'll be able to flesh out exactly what that means for you on an individual basis.
Yes, absolutely, because it does vary as well, doesn't it, depending on the size of the property that your business owns. I know that's often been something that's discussed. It's got sort of nothing to do with profitability and size of the company necessarily, but about the property that you own. There's also been some kind of extension, Craig, for some kind of specific sectors. So I know the retail, hospitality and leisure relief scheme's been extended and increased as well. I suppose it's that kind of level of detail that businesses should be looking at and coming to your organisations for advice and support on.
Absolutely. I think there's a wealth of information out there on gov.uk that was released yesterday, and people can pick through that, but sometimes it's quite useful to have a helping hand in understanding what does that mean for those individual businesses. So the support that is available throughout Essex is there to do exactly that. It's free, it's accessible, you can get it your hands on it quite quickly. So if listeners to this would like to call through, and then we can set them up with an advisor that can help them understand and translate what some of the terminology means to their businesses. I think what we're hearing from our clients at the moment is that they're incredibly busy with tackling some of the challenges that they're facing, and they don't have the time to understand if they're making the right interpretation of what guidance is coming out. We have advisors across the board, across Essex, through multiple different business support organisations that can help that. So just to come back on the point around the business rates actually as a whole, there are, for many businesses, will actually be unaffected by this because they'll be eligible for small business rate relief. So when they hear things around, on the news that might suggest that the rates are going up, the first thing I would suggest doing is obviously going on gov.uk. You can actually see what your current business rate is, and looking at the valuations office who handle this rather than your local council, who are just responsible to collect the money, not administrate the setting of the rates, and to look at actually what your current rates are. Are you eligible for small business rate relief, and actually what the increase was previously? So the re-evaluation is a regular, every 5 years, I believe, that this is done, and that just happens to fall next year. There are caps if you do find yourself being put into a higher rateable value in the coming re-evaluation. So if that is the case, there will be caps, and there will be a limitation as to how much that financially impacts each individual business. But I strongly suggest looking into it if you feel that, if you know you're on the cusp of the rateable value limits.
Yeah, Craig makes some really good points there as well. Well, it's also worth pointing out that the cap is actually subject to a sliding increase through to 2024, 2025 and 2026. So it's not all a doom and gloom from year one, but it could well be quite tough for some businesses in year three.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Where there's a lot of focus in the media yesterday, understandably, about kind of personal tax rates and the impact on sort of people, but where thresholds have been frozen. So actually knowing that cap is sliding is useful to know, isn't it? Lovely. Thanks both gentlemen for that. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of add around those business rate changes at all?
Only I would only say, actually, just leading on from what Andy's just said, is as we can see with this budget, that it's not all about the coming year. It's actually about the next 3 to 5 years. And a lot of the recuperation of the deficit that has obviously been building up during the pandemic is actually going to take a long time to unwind. However, the way to deal with that is to look ahead and understand what those impacts are, and actually have that good forecasting, that good planning in place. you don't have to do it alone as a small to medium enterprise, which is the good news. There is a wealth of support out there, and that will continue to remain out there from next year. That will be available. So I would suggest tackle this problem early. Speak to people early that can help you through the process.
Yes, and am I right in thinking that there are some opportunities here as well? Obviously, it can be a bit scary to think, your rates might be going up, and we've heard there obviously making sure that you check and whether yours are and what relief might be available for you. But there's also kind of improvement relief as well, isn't there? So it's not, you don't have to pull down the shutters on your business property, or indeed, actually, maybe now's the time to install shutters. If I carry on with that analogy, is that again something, Andy? I'll look to you first of all, but that firms should be looking at.
Absolutely, but I'm not sure I'm qualified to talk about it in depth, so I'll steer well away from that, if I may, Will.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. Craig, anything from you extra on that? Or
no, likewise, I think there's what we've seen actually in response over the past 3 years to a lot of the challenges that have been facing is that there is support out there, and it's about awareness and access to said support. So local authorities in particular are a good place to look and speak to. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of cash grants, but there are other mechanisms that businesses can engage with, and it's always worth having a conversation to see actually are they making the most out of the allowances and the reliefs that may be available. I think the deputy chair of the FSB was saying on one of the radio programs the other day, obviously one of the main challenges from their members that they're facing is obviously pre-profit taxes, and obviously there are reliefs for certain eligible businesses to relieve some of that strain, and I think if it's about making the most out of those if they aren't already.
Yes, absolutely. There's been some interesting figures come out for the FSB actually on their East of England quarterly report, looking at Q3 of this year. The kind of headline figure is that business confidence has dropped, but which is obviously perhaps concerning, but given the wider economic situation, and perhaps understandable, and hopefully perhaps the autumn statements given a bit more kind of confidence there. But it's not all doom and gloom. More businesses have reported an increase in revenue than a decrease marginally, which is positive, and 47% of small businesses in the East of England still have a kind of positive intention to grow in the coming quarter as well. So some real kind of positives coming out of that report too. So having explained explored business rate changes a little bit there, I thought the next thing that we talk about would actually be about the increase to the national living wage, which obviously may well have an impact on your on businesses' staffing bill, which is often a significant proportion, of course, for any business. Craig, do you want to start unpicking that topic a little bit for us?
On that one, so I think in the current economic climate, I think it's right that the people on the lower end of the pay spectrum are supported. I think it's going to be a challenging time for businesses where they're getting squeezed from both sides at the moment from their suppliers to help support that. But I think again it goes back to that point earlier: is early forecasting and understanding what the impact of that will be to the bottom line is absolutely critical. So I think there is going to be a bit of a lag in terms of the impact and what we see from organisations with their resourcing requirements, because as those there was a compound effect before the national minimum wage increases came in or will be coming in, that businesses may be less reluctant to hire staff because of the challenges they're facing elsewhere. So I think people will start turning perhaps to lower paid labour as a result, but obviously that's going to be slightly less lower paid than it previously was from April 23. I think it's a challenging time for business to understand how that's going to impact, but particularly for small businesses where their wage bill is obviously going to be a significant amount of their outgoings. So I think it just comes down to prudent financial planning with things like this, and understanding what the ramifications will be for their employees. I think many businesses already have paid or taken responses in relation to the cost of living already, so some may be unaffected. There are obviously routes that people can go down in terms of how do they support their employees in terms of achieving this in the short term, but in the long term, understanding what the long-term ramifications are. And one of those mechanisms that a lot of businesses are turning to is one-off payments rather than salary increases. So there is still obviously a requirement around obviously certain hourly rates that must be complied to, which is obviously worth understanding in depth if you are employing people. And there's HR support available to understand what actually your legal obligations are around that. But also to understand actually one-off payments is a mechanism, and there's other ways that you can reward and remunerate your staff that perhaps aren't necessarily as impactful on your bottom line, but also still gives your staff that sort of recognition that they deserve.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig. And Andy, going to come to you in a moment and talk about, again, some of the financial support that might be available to think about. That I suppose it's building those costs into your baseline budget, isn't it? But just to do a shameless North Essex Economic Board plug, that to say, as well as the business support programs that we offer, we're also running some fully funded skills programs at the moment around some IT skills and helping people into key sectors. So if you're watching this and as a business owner and thinking, actually, I want to keep my staff, but obviously need to think about how I can get them working more efficiently or more skilled, then and come and look at some of the support that we're offering around that. Or similarly, if you've stumbled across this and are worried about becoming unemployed with the wider economic picture that's going on, again, there's lots of support out there that can help as well. So Andy, sorry, shameless plug done. I'm going to come to you now, just talk a little bit about, if businesses are looking at the impact of obviously lots of things, but particularly here around the national living wage rise. And I think an important thing just to pick out of what Craig said there was, obviously this comes in from the 1st of April. It's not immediate. There is time for you to think about that change. What kind of support can people access, Andy?
Yeah, before I come to that, probably fair to say that the rise in the national living wage is not a great surprise. I think most businesses have factored it in and thought about it, although the precise impact was unknown. And secondly, obviously the increase is a good thing for anybody. I can't think of anybody who wouldn't think it's a good thing for people. It's interesting because one of the biggest components of our contract with Backing Essex Business, Essex County Council, is safeguarding and increasing employment. And we are seeing a number of good news stories around. In fact, we presented a number of good news cases when we were talking to Essex in the week on the back of our monthly results. And we're just seeing a level of positivity out there that we probably didn't anticipate. There's some negativity as well, of course, around people's pressure on costs. Therefore, they're reconsidering whether perhaps they employ people or perhaps they employ people, as Craig said, in a different way and remunerate them in a different way. But I'll give you one example. I can't give the name, but we've had one business in particular who's moved from London to Chelmsford. They offer a complete end-to-end third-party fulfillment solution. They've moved from agency staff to putting all their staff on PAYE. We're supporting them through this as well. And the fact they're considering increasing their support, increasing their staffing based upon demand. So despite all the so-called doom and gloom out there, there are a number of different solutions. Going back to your original point about training courses, just like Craig, just like Best do as well, we offer a range of one-to-one support, a range of different webinars, training solutions. One particular one we have got coming up, which is very early planning stage, which of course is in the NEEB area, is an understanding finance and debt management course. We're planning in the Chelmsford City Council headquarters in February, being shaped out. But again, look for details on that. And if anybody on this call wants more details and early advice on that, then please do get in touch with either the NEEB team or myself, and I'll happily give you details. It's something under the contract with NEEB that we're pleased to offer seminars and webinars. We did so during Business Finance Week, and we will do that continually right the way through till early 2023. So there's not just a range of training courses, seminars, but there is one-to-one support through the advisory team that I look after, through Craig, through his team as well, and the team that Jackie looks after at Best.
Lovely, thanks, Andy. Yes, and absolutely right to flag that positivity. Again, some more facts on that Federation of Small Businesses quarterly report that 18% of businesses intend to increase their headcount in the coming quarter, with only 10% looking to decrease. So again, net gain there, which is positive. And just to pick up on that there. The Let's Do Business Group are accredited providers of a few sort of government-backed loan schemes, aren't they? So could you just summarise those, perhaps give us the highlights?
Yeah, no problem at all. So there's probably three good strands. The most important one to highlight is the recovery loan scheme, where we've just entered into Series 3, which started in August, and that runs through till March 2023. As an accredited government supplier through the British Business Bank, we're able to offer loans of up to £150,000 over a 6-year term. And the principal difference between RLS3, if I could use an acronym, as opposed to RLS2, is that business owners are now required to provide a personal guarantee. But again, we've got a number of good news stories, a number of loans we've done under RLS2. Our pipeline seems fairly strong under RLS3, so there's no shortage of people wanting to come forward. RLS3 is only one of the things we're able to do. We offer business loans under our Let's Do Business Finance arm as well, outside of RLS3 and outside of the protective umbrella of the government guarantee. And we also offer startup loans as well, but then so do many others as well. So there is a range of financial support. So if you're in any doubt, please do have a look at our website. Please do get in touch with any member of the team or myself, and we'll happily shape the proposition to fit individual circumstances.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that, Andy. And then just another kind of, while we're talking about kind of loans and things like that, obviously inflation has been rising. There's some interesting forecasting in the autumn statement yesterday that actually it's looking like the longer term trend is that inflation will fall, sort of peaking kind of this year and dropping. So is that something that businesses need to be mindful of in terms of, I suppose, impacts right across their business, not just in terms of perhaps any loans or anything that have? Andy, I'll come back to you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely, Will. No problem. The inflation is clearly a key component of people's ability to price, ability to absorb supply chain increases, costs and rising across the whole board. So that's just one element of it. I've lost my train of thought, so I'll pass across back to you and hopefully regain that in just a moment. I was going to say something else, but it's completely skipped my mind. It must come with age.
No problem at all. If you think of it, just come back in. That's no problem at all. And Craig, couple of things there as well around kind of fuel impacts, I suppose. So we've already seen increases in the cost of fuel, which obviously contributed to the overall rate of inflation. But I thought it was interesting in the autumn statement yesterday that looked at the introduction of a car tax for electric cars. Of course, it's not really tax; it's vehicle excise duty, but car tax to everyone, I think, from April 2025. But interestingly, that the company car tax rates will remain lower for electric cars, coupled with obviously environmental concerns, looking at increased sustainability, the drive to become kind of net carbon zero, and as we've seen highlighted particularly recently, COP27 happening in Egypt. What can businesses do to try and both improve their environmental sustainability and look at making their business run more efficiently?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the inflationary pressures that are being placed on business at the moment are obviously being related to energy increases, which are significant to say the least. And I think that goes without saying, to be honest. We've been speaking to businesses that are seeing up to 4 times their and beyond that actually at the moment in terms of their rates when they're coming to refix their contracts. And I think, unfortunately, there's not a huge amount that they can do in terms of reducing the impact, the increase of those rates. They're at the mercy of the suppliers. What they can do is become more efficient in terms of their operations and reduce their usage, so that overall it hopes to mitigate that increase of their rate somewhat. I think in terms of some of the changes that they've made around that, I think there's ultimately a direction of travel, obviously in terms of moving to electric transport, across the board. And that, anybody that's trying to push against it or is pushing against the tide, unfortunately. But I think actually, as you said, it overall will work out as a much lower cost in the long run. There is obviously targets to be hit within the coming years that businesses need to be very aware of, because they're coming quicker and quicker, as the day passes. And I think businesses need to tackle those challenges. One thing that we're doing at Colbea is delivering a carbon reduction program, which has tackles a lot of the challenges that we're talking about here. Again, tailored to the businesses that we have. I think there's perhaps a perception in some instances when we talk about anything that's to do with environment or carbon reduction or anything around that there's a cost attached. and that can put a lot of people off, particularly at the moment. But actually, there's a lot of things businesses can do through either their supply chain or through their operational practices. They're actually pretty cost efficient in the short term, and that can make quite a big difference, both in the short term but also the long term as well. So the program that we deliver actually has a foundational workshop which gives people an understanding of what the terminology means, how do they even start measuring their current levels of output, and gives them some practical advice around things like certification, which can be used for attracting new customers, accessing new markets, going for tenders and bids, and all things like that. And then from that baseline understanding, they can then speak to an advisor who are, but they're actually accountants by trade, the people we work with to deliver this program. So they sort of get the money pressures, but they do it from, it's very much baked into what they do as an environmental, that's their niche, essentially, do everything they do from an environmental perspective. So they can take that and put some real practical advice and business commercial guidance into a business so that actually they can, one, be environmentally sustainable, but two, can see some commercial benefit from that. So I think it's ultimately the businesses that will succeed over the next 5-10 years will have sustainability, both financial sustainability, but also environmental sustainability as a core part of their delivery model. So if businesses want to get in touch with Colbea, we can set them up with either access to those workshops, so they can just get a taster for what they could do and what the benefits could be, or they can, if they've got a little bit and they've have a head start already, we can set them up with a one-to-one advice appointment, and they can use those appointments to actually develop a tangible carbon reduction plan for their businesses. And we've had one business that's actually gone on to deliver or use their carbon reduction, the plan they've used in the initial stint of work with us, to then go on and roll out or work with us to roll out a global strategy of how they implement that across their locations outside of the UK as well. So there's some real opportunities and real success stories that are coming through, and I really encourage businesses to, again, get ahead of the game, because the ones that do this earlier will see the most benefit from it.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Craig. And we should add as well, when we publish this kind of recording, this podcast, we'll make sure there are lots of links in the post that go with it to all of the support programs that you're both talking about today, that the North Essex Economic Board are funding too. So if you're looking for those details, you can probably Google it too, but we'll put the links in the post as well. And is there anything that you wanted to kind of add around that kind of environmental sustainability topic?
Craig covered it fairly neatly. Showed a range of support available. All I would add is there are some grant schemes available, particularly low carbon across the southeast. There are other ones as well, but if anybody wants to access any of this, if they are trying to become greener, installing greener efficient measures, then please do get in touch with any one of us on the call, and we'll happily signpost those for you. I'm just coming back to my brain fog earlier. I was going to add around, sorry about that. I was going to add about inflation. I think inflation is one of the biggest killers in business in the southeast. So clearly getting inflation down via a range of fiscal measures is important, and importantly also raising the importance of UK PLC and its attractiveness to overseas and internal investors. I think plugging the government's 60 billion black hole, I think the Chancellor has set out a range of measures that have pretty much done that, because one of the important things as well is confidence in the UK, and importantly borrowing cost and bond market yields as well, all adds to the government's cost. So anything we do to get people to invest in the UK, as well as getting bond yields down and making our interest costs less, then it has to be a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very complicated picture, and I must say, as someone not with an economics background, I've learned a lot in the past few months about bond yields and all that kind of caper, I suppose. Nice segue there, Andy. And I promise everyone, we didn't actually set this up in advance, but talk about UK PLC and kind of trading abroad as well. There were some interesting points in the autumn statement. So confirmation locally or regionally for us, I suppose, here in mid North Essex, that Sizewell C will be going ahead. And I don't want to dive into the kind of the politics and the pros and cons of that, but interestingly, I think mid North Essex is certainly within the kind of supply chain envelope of there. So there are opportunities for businesses to look out for there. And of course, we have Freeport East being developed too around the ports at Felixstowe and Harwich, and although that's in early stages, again, lots of opportunities for businesses in the area to think about there. Thinking about kind of opportunities maybe around those big projects, but maybe through import and export as well. Craig, I'm going to throw back to you because I know this is again an area where Colbea have got some support running at the moment.
So I think Sizewell C is very important to recognise. Whilst it may not be on the immediate doorstep, it will offer huge opportunities to Essex businesses. And again, there is already opportunity to express interest to supply obviously the development of Sizewell. So I would strongly suggest that any businesses, and I think there is from my understanding, an openness to attract small businesses to get involved with that project and supply into that delivery of that project, which will obviously span many years, to again look into that early as possible. There, even those businesses that may not traditionally feel that that would be relevant to them. Again, you'll be surprised how broad the requirements are to supply that project. I think I've had everything from, obviously you'd expect the construction side of things, but I think they even might be looking for like an ice cream vendor of some sort. I heard, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but it might be worth having a look into. Hey. On the point around import export, yes, I think there is a huge opportunity here for businesses. It's something that in order to grow the economy locally and nationally, I think it's something we need to tackle. I think we'd be remiss not to mention Brexit. Obviously, has presented certain challenges for businesses. There are ways and means, obviously, that businesses can overcome some of those challenges, again, through the guidance. I think one of the things we hear from clients at the moment is around ambiguity as to how they tackle those challenges. One of the things that Colbea does is we have import-export specific technical consultants who, again, through the one-to-one business advice service we offer, can help them overcome some of those questions that they may have. So these are consultants that their day job is to help large scale organizations trade internationally. So if there are smaller businesses out there that aren't currently trading internationally, there's opportunities to say, well, why not, and how can you get access to those markets? And I think when you have economic conditions that are suppressed locally, when I say that, I mean on a national level in this context, I think it's important to ensure that they've got access to all the opportunities on a global scale. So that doesn't exclude small businesses. I think with the golden age of digitalization, there's an opportunity to supply international markets much more readily than previously. So I think actually it's about understanding the rules, the regulations, which when you get the right guidance at the right time becomes a lot easier. So I would strongly encourage listeners to this to contact Colbea, and we will set up some time with our import-export specialists and help those SMEs work through some of the opportunities that they may have ahead of them.
Lovely, thank you. Andy, is there anything that you wanted to add on that theme at all?
Not an area of expertise, so I'm going to shy away from making any comment that could be made to look incredibly foolish. I will offer, though, a shameless plug for the Meet the Buyers event, which is happening at Stansted Airport, the Radisson Blu Hotel, this coming Tuesday, the 22nd. Let's do business. We have a table, there'll be three of us there, and also Karen Tucchiaroni, who looks after procurement at Essex County Council, will also be there. So if anybody can make that, if they can't, give us a call, we'll put you in touch. So if procurement, import, export is something that's close to your heart and something you want to explore, then please do either come along to that event or speak to Karen or speak to myself or one of my team after the event, and we will do our best to help you navigate the tricky path of that.
And that's fantastic. And speaking with my sort of council's hat on, we know that procurement by the public sector can be a little bit complex especially for smaller businesses, local businesses. But absolutely, the kind of the heart of what local councils want to do is support local business. And I know that some work's going on to try and make that process easier. For example, with adding in kind of important emphasis on social value among procurement scoring, again to try and support local businesses. So yeah, absolutely, if you can attend that event on Tuesday, that'd be fantastic, or speak to the Let's Do Business group and make those links in. finally, on the kind of the headline points in the autumn statement, Craig mentioned they're kind of about digitalisation, and of course the Chancellor talked about a kind of this ambition to create a Silicon Valley within the UK, and that's kind of a bit of an ongoing work, an ask there of some of the leading scientific people there. But of course, perhaps in the meantime, businesses can be looking at how they can digitise their processes, work more cleverly online, and there are also some changes to research and development support as well from the autumn statement. So Andy, I'll come to you first on that one. Just is that something that the businesses should be thinking about now?
They should be thinking about it, absolutely, but again, it's not an area of expertise, so I'm going to steer away from that, except to say that we can most certainly put you in touch with people that can talk about that in a much better way we can.
Super, thank you. And Craig, at Colbea, not necessarily on research and development, but around digital skills is again one of the programs that you're offering at the moment.
Absolutely. So there is a huge opportunity in Essex for innovation. There, as you'll see, we're based in Colchester. The University of Essex has the Innovation Centre that was relatively new. Got similar opportunities going on in Braintree and elsewhere. So there's a huge buzz around tech and digitalisation, across the board. Particularly things around medtech. There's quite a strong health and social care environment in North Essex in particular, but throughout the whole of Essex really. And I think there's an ambition really is actually when you're looking at internal investment into the southeast, people tend to look at London and they tend to look at Cambridge, but actually there is a gap between there in the form of Essex really, from sort of, in a sort of a weird triangle that actually that Essex can fill. So I think there's huge opportunities there. We often get a lot of questions, from clients around how do they upskill themselves in terms of their digital capabilities. There are provisions through some of the work that, say, the NEEB and others are doing around skills for personal development. What we look at Colbea is around skills for business development. So that might be things such as how do I make my social media work and how do I understand if it is working? How do I manage projects when I'm running a marketing campaign? It might be I need a website and I don't even know where to start with that. So for all of those things and more, we have workshops available and again, one-to-one advice and guidance to support organisations and SMEs as they develop that proposition in that space. So again, they're available on a monthly basis. There's a marketing agency that actually, again, their day job is to deliver this stuff to big companies, and you can gain access to that expertise for your business and use that and implement the skills and tools that they're using in big multinational organisations to grow your own organisation locally. So again, I'd very much encourage people to engage with that service, those workshops and that one-to-one support, and they can just simply get in touch with Colbea or any one of the business support providers, and then we will refer amongst each other. So and we can get them in touch with that. I think there is a huge opportunity. I think all businesses need to be looking in that piece, as I think with traditional approaches to businesses where they have been much more physically based. I think we've seen particularly over the last 3 years the increase in competition that is going on. And I think unless businesses are embracing that, then that's where the challenges might creep in. But the good news is that actually the access to the knowledge and the information, the skills is more readily available than it ever has been. So they just need to pick up the phone really.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Craig. And I think I said finally before, but actually finally this time around the autumn statement before we cover one other topic on our podcast today. I know, Craig, you wanted to mention the dividend tax rate changes as well. So feel free to expand on that.
So I think this is just an important point to notice that obviously a lot of directors and owners of businesses obviously will be paying themselves primarily through dividends in some way, shape or form. So something to be for owners to be aware of, that is reducing down. So that may have an impact. I would again strongly suggest speaking to the Backing Essex Business team and to accountants around some of the financial impacts of that, and how that might obviously impact the personal allowances that obviously individuals individuals and business owners have. So I think that's just something to be aware of. I think there is more, obviously, that we could delve into today, but probably it would be about 10 hours long this if we went through every line. But I think the key is to get the information, get that you need as a business owner. Speak to the support that is out there, speak to your local authorities, speak to business support providers. Essex has a really, really strong business support provision. It's not spoken about enough. Obviously, I would say that, but it's something that small businesses that can get that help that they need. They just need to come to the table and ask for it. And I think it's a great time. Actually, I know there's a lot of sort of doom and gloom in the media, perhaps, but actually there is positivity, throughout the Essex region for small businesses to engage.
Definitely. And I think I saw in one of the some of the much analysis that went into the autumn statement that around that dividend tax rate point, I think it's about a £500 difference between an owner who's taking home about £40,000 compared to an employee who's taking home £40,000. So something that definitely that you should look into if that applies to you. So having done that, I was going to say whistle stop, but we've actually gone into quite a bit of detail there around the autumn statement. So that's kind of some of the more immediate changes that are happening, although we said again, lots of those things come into force from the 1st of April. And we talked a little bit about the wider economic picture as well, whether that's inflation projected on kind of a slight increase on unemployment rate and things. Just wanted to very quickly talk about startups. So again, I know that this is something, an area that both of you, both your organisations do a lot of support on. People looking at the wider economic picture might think, I've got a business idea, but I'm not sure now is the time to do it. Is now the right time to perhaps start up your business? And if you are looking at doing that, what support is out there for you? And Andy, I'm going to come to you first again. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem at all. Starting a business is always a great idea if you have a great idea, but if you get weighed down by the thoughts about costs and employment or the rest of the stuff, then I would say please don't set that to one side, because just like Craig can, just like Best can, we can actually take your idea and shape it. We are experts in creating business plan, talking and thinking ideas through, creating projections, really enabling your business to possibly take off, to finance it. And I will come back to one other point I wanted to make as well around the University of Essex that Craig mentioned it before. There are startup loans available, which I would say it's an important point to make, a lend to the individual rather than to the business. So, for example, if you're starting a business with 3 directors, 3 partners, then each of those partners or businesses can access finance in their own name rather than the business themselves. But please do talk to us about your idea. We can help you. We can help you support it. We can introduce you to specialists if you're branching to specialist areas, whether it's import export, whether it's employing people, whether it's marketing. And just going back to what I was saying about University of Essex, borrowing money isn't always a solution for your business. The Innovation Centre, University of Essex, are excellent supporters of business across Essex. They also offer a programme called Angels at Essex. So if you're considering equity support into your business, then again we can effect your introduction. I'm sure Craig can too, to the right people there. So if borrowing money doesn't feel right to you, but you're prepared to dilute your ownership of the business and taking an equity stake in there to really make your idea take off is the right idea, then Angel of Essex may be the right port of call for you. Please do contact us.
Lovely, thank you. And Craig?
Yeah, I think it's actually a great time for people to start businesses, in Essex and beyond. I think you actually see at times like these an increase in people looking to more entrepreneurial routes of employment. We've spoken a little bit about actually there's potentially a danger that obviously unemployment will rise over the next few years. People will, as a result of that, look to actually start their business. We've particularly seen more of that since the pandemic. It actually went up quite significantly. We expected it to tail off a little bit when the lockdown sort of went away, and actually it stayed up. So I think that trend will continue. The support again for pre-start businesses is there. Colbea has throughout 40 years we've been around, obviously always been committed to providing that guidance and advice to pre-start individuals, and the ones that tend to thrive and survive are the ones that get that early engagement, that understand and that actually have a solid business plan. I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of people will find we often get calls from people that have been running business for 1 or 2 years. They've sort of fallen into it and it's organically grown. And there's nothing wrong with that by any means. But they come to us at that stage and they say, I've got lots of stuff going on. I'm spinning plates and I don't know where to. I'm afraid one of them's going to drop. And actually, you can prevent that through having a solid plan, a solid understanding of where you want to be in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time. And I think we've touched on a lot of things throughout discussions today that actually highlight that there's a real need to do that. There's a lot of different financial changes that are going on with regulations and laws and with the central government at the moment. And actually, if you've got a solid plan, it will take all of that into consideration. And when those things come down the line, you'll be a lot less scared of dealing with them and a lot better resourced to deal with them as well. And I think that's my message, I think, for anybody listening today is get intervention and support early on. Even if you don't think you need it necessarily, it's sometimes useful just to have that sounding board, check you're headed in the right direction.
Amazing, thank you. Well, I've come to the end of our time here today as we're recording our kind of understanding the 2022 autumn statement. So nice positive note to finish on there from both of you. Thank you very much for that. And I just want to say thank you again to both of our panelists today. So Andy Turner from the Backing Essex Business initiative run by Let's Do Business Group, and Craig Baston from Colbea as well. I've been Will Lodge from the North Essex Economic Board, and hopefully you've found this information podcast kind of really useful. Look out for more information on the website and on the posts that go with this too. And thank you very much to both of you for joining us today, and all of you who've been listening along. Thank you.